Hey everyone, I am Mutant Buster Green. Please like and subscribe to my channel because sometimes I do new stuff like this. So I originally thought of doing this as more like a formal news kind of thing, but I think just doing one of my usual videos works well enough. This video is like the sequel to my Is Brazil Making a Just Beyond video. So the big question of this video is Netflix making a Gundam movie? And the answer to that question is no, Netflix is not making a Gundam movie. That's ridiculous. Ha ha ha. But what is actually going on is that Legendary, the studio between Godzilla vs. Kong, Pacific Rim, they are making a live-action Gundam movie. And they've actually been working on it for about 3 years, as best I can tell. It's why there's a Gundam Unicorn Easter egg in Pacific Rim 2, because those Easter eggs require corporate synergy. Also, I'm assuming Warner Brothers had some kind of pre-existing deal for the Gundam rights, because there was that big-ass Gundam at the end of Ready Player One. So yeah, Legendary is releasing a big-budget Gundam movie, and that will make millions of dollars in Japan, millions of dollars in China, do quite well in Europe, and in America, well, the rights for this movie have been swept up by Netflix, so it's going straight to Netflix. You see, Netflix has been pounding on Warner Brothers' door pretty hard to get the rights to Godzilla vs. Kong, which makes a little bit of sense because Netflix keeps producing bad Godzilla anime. I mean, sometimes it's good, the new one looks promising. But anyway, WB wisely kept it for themselves because they knew how valuable it was, and that was a definite win for their camp in terms of making a good movie and getting a good bang for their buck. Now, it looks like in this Godzilla vs. Kong deal, as some sort of a runner-up prize, Netflix did manage to walk away with the Gundam movie rights. And aside from that, we don't really know anything about what this Gundam movie is. Now, even though we don't know anything about what this Gundam movie is, there is some tangential shit about it we can deduce. So the big problem with the Gundam franchise that's kind of always been a problem is that the OG original Gundam anime is from 1979, and it looks very rough around the edges. Now in Japan, audiences are cool with that. Audiences in Japan are very nostalgic, they have a lot of respect for the past, but other countries like America don't really seem to feel the same way. And it's really funny because like when I was living in Japan, I met some random kid and I was like, hey, what's your favorite Gundam anime? And this random kid was like, my favorite Gundam anime is Double Zeta. And I was like, you're 6 years old and your favorite anime is from 1986? I have mad respect for you. Anyway, meanwhile, Americans are crybabies who can't watch old shows because they leave black bars on the edges of their widescreen TVs. So yeah, there is some kind of a demand to remaster the original Gundam. And honestly, after Gundam The Origin played out, I really thought they were going to just keep going and do the original Gundam anime. Or at least do some kind of like remix or like adapt the manga. You know, something cool like the way Yamato 2199 played out. But anyway, there's this movie, and this movie could fill that hole too. Because for the record, this is not the first time they've tried to do a live-action remake of the original Gundam. In 1983, a lot of money was wasted in a misguided attempt to make a live-action 1980s blockbuster version of Gundam, mostly headed up by Blade Runner production designer and later Turn A Gundam mecha designer Sid Mead. So the 1983 Gundam movie was an adaptation of the original anime for the American audience. And man oh man, I just wish I could have lived in an alternate reality where this thing had actually happened. Like, can you guys imagine walking into a 90s video store and just seeing like Rocky, RoboCop, Gundam? Man, that would have been cool. Anyway, so the script for this thing exists somewhere in the dark reaches of the internet, and I managed to find enough of a short summary that it's pretty clear from what I can see that the 1980s Hollywood screenwriters just full-on bastardized the story, trying to like condense a whole anime into 2 hours. There are random changes like making Char Amuro's long-lost brother instead of Sayla's, randomly making Amuro's father some Chad badass instead of a deadbeat drunk. There's a new random Operation V suit called the Gun Grenader, which just in my head, it's a weird GM, and it has to be piloted by a washed-up Chinese baseball player, because the Gundams in this movie need people who have the physical skills to fight in order for the robots to fight properly, because they have some weird mental mobile trace kind of deal going on. And anyway, it all boils down to a reverse Wizard of Oz final boss fight where the Zeon Empire is led by a Zeong, and this Zeong is revealed to not actually be a political leader, but a computer program, which is like the oldest fucking story from the 1950s ever. So yeah, this Zeong computer program is magnificently controlling a country and all these Zakus, and what the fuck, Sydney? This is just you trying to make Tron again. Or wait, did this movie turn into Tron? I am honestly baffled, like, the deeper I read into it. Like, this reminds me of SD Gundam, which did the same bullshit at the end, but at least in SD Gundam it made sense. Anyway, so from what I can tell, because it was 1983, and I guess Mead had just made Tron, and all he wanted to do was make another Tron. He was like hot on that Tron gas. I guess he was trying to convince the studio to do this movie in full CGI like Tron was done in 1983, and it just was not realistic, so that somehow killed the project. But yeah, now that I read more into it and I see how bad the script is, I'm actually a little bit worried about them trying to adapt it now. I mean, I think it can be done, especially if they stick close to the roots and do a formula similar to the original Japanese movie trilogy. Like, the original Japanese movie trilogy sort of works. The biggest issue with the original trilogy is just that the story is super unbalanced. The first movie treads way too much water, and then the third movie tries to like wrap up the entire second half of the anime, which was already cut short as it is. Char doesn't really do enough in the first movie. Neither does Ramba Rao, but then Ramba Rao replaces Char. But then Ramba Rao's entire arc is in the second movie. Like, I guess an easy fix would just be if they had Ramba Rao show up in the first movie and maybe have him fight alongside of Char instead of having Char benched for like such a long time. I don't know. They should really try to get back into space by the second movie though. Also, speaking of Ramba Rao, the internet really wants Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec to do Ramba Rao, and I am completely okay with that. Anyway, there's a few other possibilities at play for what this movie could maybe be. Like, it could maybe be G-Savior. Nah, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, there is a reality where they decide that adapting 0079 is too hard and they're going to fuck it up. So instead of doing an adaptation, they do some weird Gundam spin-off you weren't expecting, like G-Savior. I mean, there's a possibility this could happen, but I doubt this is actually the way they could do it. And there is one other rumor with this movie that it could actually be an adaptation of Gundam Wing. That's pretty nuts, but I really don't see that happening because as beloved as Wing is in America and in Japan, like overall it's just not the most famous Gundam worldwide. And if I had to be real, I think this rumor is mostly being propagated by jaded senior citizens who think every Gundam series is Gundam Wing. And then apparently the rumor had more fuel to its fire added by Megan Fox randomly saying in a conversation one year that they should make a Gundam Wing movie because she thought Gundam Wing was awesome. Anyway, I'm okay if it is a live action Gundam Wing movie. I just wouldn't get my hopes up because I think the possibility of that is super low. But hey, maybe if this Gundam movie works out, maybe in like 4 years at the soonest, you could get a Gundam Wing movie if they really wanted to like just press on the nostalgia buttons of the Toonami crowd. Who knows? It could happen. Anyway, so that's about everything I have to say about the currently, as of now, unseen Gundam movie that Legendary is working on. Netflix will release in America, and hopefully it doesn't suck. Because as I've realized by seeing the previous attempts to get this thing made, it could very easily suck. I mean, it really just comes down to people not respecting source material. Whenever a bad film adaptation is made, it's because people did not respect the source material. And maybe they just wanted to make a Tron sequel instead of Gundam. Alright, you guys, I'm Buster Green. Please subscribe to me. I'm talking about Gundam pretty frequently. That's mostly what I do. Thanks, you guys. I'm out. Later.